Hey guys, just checking I'm live on Facebook as well. Yep, I'm live on Facebook and YouTube. I think I'll focus on the Facebook screen. Guys, it's your boy M.K.S here, back into the video. It's nice lighting. Some people complain about the lighting sometimes, but anyway, I'm recording in a different room because my brother's sorting something out in that room. So anyhow, for anyone who's seen my previous videos, but it's not the most comfortable seat, I've got to admit, but it's the one I find easiest to record in a minute. But yeah, I'm just going to make one more video before I have my shower and go out to a nice games group. Nice life story, I know. But yeah, welcome to part 2 of Black Fridays, as I call it. Black Friday Safari, as I call it, or whatever I call it on Facebook. But yeah, having to sit forward is a bit bad for my back, but it is it's the easiest place for recording it, hopefully, at the moment. So ideally I would have done my usual intro. Hey guys, it's your boy M.K.S here, back in another video, and welcome to Black Fridays, the very, as I call it, part 2. But here goes. So these are pointers number 11 to 20. I hope you enjoy listening to me waffle. But as ever, please let me know what you think. For instance, how would you empower black-owned businesses on Fridays? How could we support black-owned businesses on Black Fridays and that kind of thing? But I'm jumping ahead of myself. As I say, these are points number 11 to 20. So I appreciate your likes, views, sharing the videos, and that kind of thing, either on Facebook and or YouTube, and possibly most importantly, getting involved in the discussion in the comments, especially members of the black community, Native Americans, Native people from the Americas, POC, people of colour, minorities, neurodivergent people, and whatnot. But all comments welcome, as ever. Even people who disagree with me, even if you want to leave hate, if you must. But here goes. So number 11, what could be done to change and improve the situation for the black community in Britain, America, or elsewhere? What sort of things could they do differently? What can companies and allies do to support them? Those who want to. I mean, I don't like to force anyone to do anything they don't want to. I don't like to enforce things like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, quotas, or anything like that. But I want it to be those who want to support the black community, maybe for PR purposes, maybe to be nice, maybe for a mix of those things, maybe for different reasons or whatever. Yeah, I'd love to know what you think are some of the reasons either to not support or to support, and I'd say best and last, the black community, again, here in Britain or America. I think, like I talked about it before, including in part 1, I think if they network together and invest together, that could be a really cool thing. I think of it with my own community, like the neurodivergent community. I wonder what we could achieve if we invest together. If we pull together, even though people talk about hard work, like people like Elon Musk, who said he has Asperger's or whatever, ASD or whatever, autism spectrum disorders they like to call it nowadays. Even though he said like that hard work and like working for God knows how many hours a day or whatever, sounds a bit too much hard work to me. But one person can only work for, I think humanly, you could probably only work for like 18 hours maybe. I mean, even if you only slept for like 4 hours, by the time, if you think about like things like having a shower, doing other things in the bathroom that I don't want to think about, to be honest with you, but having a shower, whatever, having something to eat, spending time with your family, even if it's just for, if you take it literally, unless you somehow class those things as work or you do them differently, like, I don't know, if you even do those productively, maybe you can get some out of hours, but I don't see how you could work, like some people say 24 hours, I think that's impossible. But if you take 2 people, if you take, even if hypothetically you said, yeah, you could work 24 hours, again, I don't think that's possible. I take it probably a bit too literally. I think even Elon Musk says like working like 22 hours or whatever. Bill Gates used to say he used to do all-nighters and all that kind of thing. If you take 2 people who will work 12 hours, that's the same amount of hours. If you're talking about duration, and I think they even say like using delegation, like Microsoft has lots of employees, so as hard as Bill Gates works, he used to work or whatever when he was younger, and as hard as Elon Musk works, you still need like employees and people you network with and things like that. Some people say your network is your net worth or whatever. Sorry, trying to get that in the right order, or the dyslexic version or whatever. But yeah, I think that even if neurodivergent people, if we work together, amazing. I think to see what we could do, and I'm quite happy. I try not to get too excitable, but I'm quite happy with hearing about the stories of successful neurodivergent people and changing the perception. One of the things I did before I move on to point number 12, I'm just going to try and say about I put on the playlists, I put like neurodiversity and things like that, because I thought I couldn't decide which ones to include or which ones not to include for the playlist. I did try and stick to the topic at hand, but the Black Diaspora, including people from African countries, learning about neurodiversity. In fact, I'd love to go to African countries and teach about neurodiversity, as well as the weaknesses, also the strengths, and how our brain works differently. But that we're different for a reason, I guess, and we do have weaknesses, of course, that other people might not have, but we also have many strengths. So I'd love to raise awareness of neurodiversity amongst the Black community or even Asian community and whatnot. But yeah, basically, I think networking together, you can achieve a lot more. As I say, two people working together, half the amount of time, and work the same amount of time as someone who works much harder, having to work twice the amount of time. I hope that makes sense. As ever, I'd love to know what you think. Number 12, as I say, networking together, I think is a great thing. I was thinking about, I mean, I can see there are disadvantages and difficulties with it, like when you disagree with things or whatever, you have arguments or disagreements. But seeing things from different perspectives, I think, and again, different ideas and different views could be helpful, I guess. That was better than working on your own, being on your own, like people worry about, unfortunately, about losing their jobs and things like that. It puts them out of kilter or whatever the saying is, but it's something that if you're on your own, and some people set up a business, but they are sole traders or small businesses, like I said in part one, and it means you kind of have to be there all the time, whereas really wealthy people make money even when they sleep. But again, I'd love to know what you think about the strengths and weaknesses of my arguments and whether they make sense or whatever, or any questions you have, anything else you want to comment, as I normally say. Probably should tell people not to comment, because it could be reverse psychology. Please don't comment, and then people might comment. But I know one of the things, I take things quite literally, as I say, in many cases, although I kind of know sometimes that I think what they call autistic masking. I'm not saying, I often say I'm not sure if I'm autistic or not, or have ADHD or not, but I could be, I don't know, guilty is the right word, I could be doing like what they call masking. Like I might have learned throughout time, like what a quote unquote normal person would do and how to fit in a little bit. But I can be very awkward in social situations, especially when there's lots of people, like the film writers group, script writers group that I went to yesterday and I often go to. But sometimes the person who runs it, Richard, he normally has to say like, you guys start talking to people and all that kind of thing. But sometimes I don't want to butt into their conversations. I don't want to over talk or talk too much about myself and my own ideas and whatever. So I do struggle to get to regulate that much. Number 13, as per usual, one thing about with 13, I think like selfish points and all that kind of thing, like football, Italian football and that kind of thing. On that note, I suppose in part one I could have said, point number 4 or number 5, I could have said like black footballers and I suppose both types of footballers, like the American type and British type or soccer. But yeah, thinking about football Fridays and also celebrating black footballers and that kind of thing, although I'm an Italian fan. But yeah, black people being included through football in Italy, as I often say. But yeah, also athletics and things like that, but also the American type of football, even though I'm not too keen on that. But I think looking back at historical successes, you can see what can be done. So, for instance, with neurodivergent people, I think I would have lost even more confidence and would have given up a lot earlier. And sometimes I've given up, but I've tried to keep going. But I suppose if you're alive, you might as well do your best if you can. But I suppose that's one thing you can do, kind of. But if I didn't hear about famous and successful neurodivergent people, I think I would have, and I would have been a lot less. Not that I'm usually confident or positive, as you can probably tell, but I would have really struggled to see any positives of neurodiverse conditions without those who've gone before who have done well. But I hope I don't jinx it by including point number 13, but I suppose it is. I won't say that's a selfish sort of thing, but it is talking about my own community, so to speak. But yeah, bring it back to the topic. And ideally today I would have done, and normally on Fridays as well as Mondays, I'd love to just write whatever comes to my mind, and I'll say whatever comes to my mind. But I have to sort of regulate it because too many ideas sort of come to my mind at once, and I get dragged into too many different directions. As Kevin O'Leary said, sorry, someone decided to Hoover now. So, as Kevin O'Leary said, Steve Jobs focused on, as he put it, the signal, not the noise. Yeah, I get distracted. But I was thinking, like, due to my use of alliterations, and as it's November, I would love for companies and organisations that begin with N, and even countries like Nigeria and Niger. I can't think of any others on top of my head. Norway, of course, who has probably the biggest sovereign wealth fund apparently in the world, the Norwegian pension fund. Yeah, those are the only three countries I can think of off the top of my head that begin with N that could invest in Napoli, have their own sovereign wealth fund like the Norwegian pension fund. Nigeria could have similar, and Niger could have similar, however you pronounce it, and they could all invest in Napoli, and maybe even my fellow neurodivergent people, though I'd love for us to invest in Italian football generally, and even go and visit Italy and share ideas or strategies and that kind of thing to benefit Italian footy. But yeah, including black people through football and that kind of thing in Italy as well. And I talked before about like Italian football working with native people from across the Americas, Native Americans and other as from across the Americas. But yeah, also because it's a Friday, I think like Fiorentina, I love for like Five Guys, the company Five Guys that is, and Five Nights at Freddy's to, as well as like even Finland, the country, to invest in Fiorentina, and Frosinone to invest in France. I have a bit of a dilemma because with and I'm going a bit off topic, but with France, part of me would love for them to invest in Fiorentina because I feel I don't know why, I feel it's like has a connection with like Renaissance and art and that kind of thing. But France and Frosinone both begin with FR, and Finland and Fiorentina begin with FI. So I'd love for all possible countries, or even towns, villages, and places generally to have their own sovereign wealth funds, investment funds, and as many people as possible to invest in Italian football and Celtic. So I'd love for them to find ways to be attractive towards investors. But going back to the black community, I was thinking like about black filmmakers making scary films, horror films, thrillers, and that kind of thing. Funny enough, even though I'm easily scared, they're my kind of films. Maybe it's because, so like people say, if you're passionate about something, maybe it's because I can kind of relate to being scared. But being aromantic, I'm not really into romantic films. Although I do watch a show called First Dates. I don't know why, but sometimes I do watch it. I haven't watched it for a while, but yeah, being aromantic, I wouldn't personally get into like romance films and that kind of thing. But being someone who's easily scared, I think like horrors and thrillers, I suppose, because my imagination is quite a scary one. I'm scared of most things, including the spider that was on my bed this morning or whatever. Oh God knows how long I was there for. I'm even scared a little bit sitting here because I've seen a few spiders near where I'm on the settee before. So I shouldn't preempt it, but yeah, I'm thinking of the black community as well, making scary movies and scary films because it's point number 13. I'm thinking about scary films, Film Friday and that kind of thing. Number 14. Having said that, on that note, I'd love for the black diaspora to work together as film producers and directors and whatnot, financing their own films, financing each other. Maybe people like Spike Lee, Steve McQueen, and others could finance other black producers. Black directors. Apparently, a producer is someone who funds the film, and the director is someone who directs it, the direction and whatnot. But I mean, the director, I suppose, is very important because they come up with the ideas and all that. But I suppose everyone involved in a film is important. But I'd love to say it again and find out about and promote and support black and other POC, including Native American film directors, and help finance their dreams about being film directors, those who want to become film directors, and also neurodivergent film directors, producers and directors. And I'd love to have a network for neurodivergent people in films, whether that's actors, actresses, producers, directors, or whatnot, even financing their own films, like neurodivergent entrepreneurs financing films. I mean, it is a bit of a risk, and I'm sure they obviously want to make more money and not lose money, but just like any business, and it is the film industry, you can lose just as much as you can gain, I guess, or just as likely. But hopefully the gains will be bigger than the losses. I think of that with investment, like over 5 or 10 years, yeah, you might lose money, but overall you'll gain a lot more. I disagree with Warren Buffett. I would say, like, when he talks about, like, rule number 1, don't lose money, and rule number 2, don't forget the first. I think that's quite an employee mindset, like risk averse, which I kind of am quite risk averse, but I think it is a risk, and it's not very nice to lose money, but it's probably what you have to be prepared to do if you're going to win. It's what you have to be prepared to lose as well, before you can learn to win, or whatever. But I'd love to know whether you agree with me or not. But as I say, I'd love to support and celebrate black film producers, directors, actresses, actors, and black people in films, and maybe they can network together more, have networking events for black film producers and directors and whatnot. And similar with Native Americans and POC and neurodivergent people especially. I know for these videos I've talked about, like Black Fridays and all like that. But yeah, seeing what they can achieve by working together, as I say, networking together, having networking events, so directors or wannabe directors could meet with producers, they could mentor each other. Things I know Steve McQueen mentored dyslexic film directors or young directors who want to get in, or people who want to get into directing, and maybe people like him could do the same for the black community. I think Spike Lee has already financed a few films. I mean, I think Tyler Perry does finance films, but yeah, maybe there could be more who could do that. Black-owned businesses, black enterprise and whatnot, could do similar in Britain as well, and around the world. And maybe they could collaborate, like Nollywood, and which is, I think Nollywood is the second biggest producer of films after Bollywood, so it's actually ahead of Hollywood in terms of film production. But yeah, I'd also love to support and celebrate black footballers and black-owned farming and food companies, food production companies and food companies, people to try Nigerian food, South African food and whatnot. And moving on, number 15, and support black ambition generally. Number 16, on that note, how can we support black-owned businesses for Black Friday or generally? But I'm thinking about Fridays. Funny enough, as it is Black Friday, coincidentally today. I think even before I made these videos, I didn't realise. So it's quite a coincidence. It's lovely when things like that just work. So many times I think, like, I have to accept life is not ideal. Being potentially autistic, I like things to be a certain way. Not sure if that's autism or me just being a butthead, but yeah, I find it so interesting when things just work in a certain way. I should be more flexible, I know, but focused but flexibly. But sometimes I like things to be a certain way. Like I get obsessed with wearing certain clothes on certain days, like football shirts, which I normally wear anyway, but ones that remind me of Italian football on a Friday or whatever it might be. I've had a Fiorentina shirt. I need to get a Fiorentina shirt, I guess. But I'd even wear like the rival tops. Like I've, as you've probably seen if you've seen my other videos, I have an Inter Man and an AC Milan cap because I'm nuts. But yeah, I'd love to know basically, sorry, to put the question quite simply, how can we support black-owned businesses? I'm mentioning it now, but it's not just for Friday, obviously. But even allies, like supporting them at certain months. Like I know, I mean, when it comes to black British people, I normally only support them in October and African Americans in February, but I suppose it is free support at the end of the day. But anyhow, number 17. So yeah, seeing what black people can produce as in films and use their imagination and that kind of. I suppose I did say it's free support, but hopefully one Anglo-Indian Day or Mixed Heritage Month, whatever that is, or whatever, maybe they can return the favour. So. But I'm not expecting any sort of finances or whatever financial reward or anything like that. I'm just helping as someone who wants to help. So I want to be an ally, I guess, because I look at it like and see it's something to do, something to work on, something that could give me a purpose, and also because we work together against white supremacy. Number 18, I'd love to know about financial success stories. And again, I talked about earlier, like how seeing neurodiverse people doing well, like people like even Elon Musk and Bill Gates, and Richard Branson, people like that. I might not always agree with people like that, some of them, but I might not necessarily be their biggest fan even, but it is something that you can be inspired by. So many autistic people struggle even just to get jobs or function in regular life, to get jobs. they keep jobs and things like that. So seeing people like that can be inspirational for lots of people. I'd love to know what people think about that. But do people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates inspire you if they're autistic and or ADHD or whatever? Do neurodivergent entrepreneurs inspire? I'd love to know from my fellow neurodivergent people. But I think similar with the black community, like momentum can take you forward if you see people who've done it before. So as some people say, it's important to see people who look like you and have something in common with you and all that you can relate to. A lot of people say that, not just me, but well, at least a few people I've heard say that. But anyway, number 19. Also, I'd love to support black filmmakers, like making websites, video games, and all sorts of different games, board games, card games, and especially tech games and that kind of thing. And POC generally doing that as well. And neurodivergent people and native people from America and the Americas. And also number 20, I love to support things like Black Girls Code and things like female empowerment, black women in business, black girls even learn about business from a young age, and celebrate and appreciate those success stories and find out about those businesses so we can support them. People who want to support them. So I talked about before, like a black-owned directory of black-owned businesses and that kind of thing. Where to find a black-owned business or whatnot, and how they can collaborate together, like black-owned tea and coffee companies, bread-owned companies, cafes, restaurants, and whatnot. They could use each other as suppliers as well, utilize each other as suppliers, so they have a mutual benefit as a group. I hope that makes sense. And I'm out.